It looks like people are coming back up.
All right. Well,
Well, I think we may be on.
yeah,
I think we may be on right now.
yeah.
I think so. It says you're live, and other channels are coming up. Well, let me go to my channel real quick. Yeah, are we live, guys? Yeah, we're live, dude. Sweet.
All right. Cool.
Somebody like was just about to get sacked, and then like they saved everything. Everything's back up now, and now they're the hero.
Yeah, there you go. Right on.
Awesome. Well, that was kind of crazy, huh? All right. Well, we will definitely have a little break in the replay action. For those of you who are watching this 15 weeks from now, this was the day and the moment when Twitch crashed. Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
the whole site went down. It was
everything.
crazy.
Like Resident Evil 4 was actually on the top list of games played. It's probably the first time ever.
Yeah.
You couldn't find Dota 2 nowhere.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was crazy. It was nuts.
Dude, yeah, I just thought it was my reception. I was like, ah, Comcast, you. And then it was
No,
like
the
all
whole
of Twitch.
site. Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, with
Crazy.
that though, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, the meaning of life.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, we already answered that, so
Yeah, so we don't need to talk
yeah,
about
we
it
don't
again.
need to talk about that anymore.
Right. But, so let's move on.
Let's move on. Okay, we got that
Not
answered.
sure where
Sweet.
we're at before, but let's go ahead and just take on some more questions, and
Yeah.
then we'll just try to wrap up because
Yep.
I need to get hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
With the old
so
families.
if you guys have any other questions, now's the time. Just throw them in. Um,
What are you
and
using for your questions?
what?
What are you using for your questions?
Use just a Google spreadsheet.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you can like turn it into a front-facing, like styled form, and then it just drops everything into Google spreadsheet. Just like, all right,
Oh,
cool.
cool.
Yeah, dude, it's dope. It's pretty handy. Marcelo sets it up, so he's working some kind of magic, but I'm sure it's probably not too difficult. But anyways, so that's actually it for the questions that had come in. The one other question that I really wanted to ask real quick is, how do you keep up with how do you keep current, I guess you could say, with industry stuff? Like how do you like you started playing games again, right? How do you
Uh-huh.
keep up with meeting new people and staying in contact with people? Like how do you stay relevant other than like posting awesome art?
Yeah, so the thing that I realized is that the simplest answers, the most obvious answers, are almost always true, right? And one thing that I always tell people about anything really is, ask yourself a series of serious questions. And one of the most serious things you should do, which is like, what are the things you care about and love? But more importantly, like, what do you think the answer is? Because a lot of times, and this is just kind of me trying to teach you guys a life lesson type of thing. Because a lot of times, what ends up happening is people get distracted
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of stuff, and they don't ask enough of these types of questions. And then this is when things start to pass them by. They like, for instance, like if you were to ask me like what I think of the VR situation,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think VR is great, but I don't think it's ready. I think it's just too heavy. It's too
It's
big.
cumbersome.
It takes a lot to get into. Like, you not only does the cheapest one cost around $300 to $400, it's like as
Mm-hmm.
much as a system, like a console game, right? You could buy a PlayStation Pro um, if you wanted to. Uh, but you also have to have like a super powerful computer to play a
Right.
game reasonably, you know, and that's thousands of dollars, right? And so like the cost of entry is just too high. And so they have to solve that problem. Once they solve that problem, the next problem is the cumbersomeness of it. It's just this big piece of hardware. Not everybody's into that. I'm into it. I'm cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to think about it outside. Like, what do you think? Like, you have to ask a question, but what do you think doesn't mean that everybody agrees with that. You have to think about it objectively. And that's how you get reasonable, like you get some reasonable hindsight on some certain things, right?
Right.
But to stay current, like, so getting back to kind of that question, like, how do you do it? Like, well, just ask questions. What do you think things are going to go? And then just make attempts. But I wouldn't worry about staying current, because staying current is as easy as jumping on YouTube and just seeing what's going on. You know, information has never been so easy to acquire, right?
Yeah.
And so really what it comes down to is not so much about like how do you stay current. It's like how do you stop staying so current?
Right. How do you isolate yourself is a better question.
Yeah, how do you allow yourself to take a break and get back to just
Right.
working on stuff, and then coming back and seeing what's going on?
Right.
Like a lot of times, most of the people in here will probably have this problem, whatever it may be. It may be Facebook, it might be Twitter, it might be Instagram, it might be something that you just check literally every 5-10 minutes.
Right.
You know, like they did a statistic, or they did like a survey, and they found that out of like 1,000 people, that specifically Americans, that we check our phones literally 100 times a day.
Yeah, I can see
up
that.
to upwards to every 6 minutes throughout the whole day.
Yeah, and that's on average.
That's on average. There are people that obviously do it more, people who do it less.
Speaking of, I got to check my phone real quick. Hold on.
But on average, no, seriously though,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
on average, you know, like I realized this, and so I've tried to be better about staying away from that, because it can definitely become a problem, right? And you know, everybody is a victim to this. Not all, specifically people who have these technologies.
Yeah.
Right? People that are living in like rural areas of the world that have no access to internet or cell phones, whatever, then they might not have this issue. But for the Western world, most of us do. And so it's not so much about how to stay relevant, right? It's more about like just disconnecting yourself, because staying relevant is great. Like you can know what's the latest and greatest trends, but if you have nothing to contribute to that, you're useless, right? Like you're not going to be able to acquire any real income from just knowing what's current. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. There's a job for everything, but that means you're probably a news reporter of some sort, or some
press
sort of,
or something,
a vlogger, like a Philip DeFranco, not James Franco.
I was like James Franco.
Yeah, because I love Philip DeFranco. He's talking about all kinds of cool stuff.
Right.
But that's like 10 minutes of my time, and then now I'm like up to date with all the Kardashians.
Yeah. God.
I don't have to watch 30 minutes of seeing what they're up to like on TV. You know what I mean? Like it's just really easy to get information.
Yeah.
And so, and get other people's opinions on that information. That's also easy. But then it's not easy just saying, okay, but I'm not going to do that for 3 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so for me, staying current is not too difficult. But like disconnecting, that's a problem that I think most people need to start working towards.
Yeah.
Like solving, because that's what really distracts people, is that they're constantly on. You know, one thing that I do, and I've done this, and it's been pretty good. Is I used to put my phone on the ground, like by my feet, and I'll put it on
you while you're working.
Yeah, so that way it's not easy to get. I actually have to like go down and get it, right?
Yeah.
And you think something like, well, it's not that far away from you, like, but that's the thing. It just needs to be.
Daddy.
Oh, it's like a monster.
It's a ghoul. Daddy made a ghoul.
Yeah. All right, I'm almost done, Suda. I'll be out in just a second. So
Cool. Yeah. So
you know, like, so staying relevant, I think is a good thing to do, but I don't think it's hard to do.
Right.
Okay. You can just look at what's going on the internet. You can go to Facebook. If you follow enough artists, you can kind of see what they're up to. You know, you can gauge that compass, right? You can see kind of where everyone's going. And you can just see the kind of games that are being made. You know, you can just take a guess. Right. And that's the first step. Like I say, like people don't ask enough questions. Kind of where I was starting with this whole answer was, you need to ask questions that allow you to dive deeper, to not necessarily know what's coming next, but I'm sorry, not know what's current, but what's coming next. I think that's a better way of going about it. Like it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
But even if you predict wrong, it's fine. Like at least you have that knowledge.
Well, if you have the ability to adapt, then it's not that big of a deal. If you can't adapt, then you tend to find
Yeah,
yourself a little bit
we were
more
talking
sticky
about that.
situations.
Yeah, we're talking about that future proofing yourself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the future proofing yourself is to know more things, not knowing better software or anything. It's just about like just knowing things. Because eventually the software, right? For instance, like becoming a 3D artist might not be a job anymore, right? Because if you think about it, like 3D is becoming easier and easier to do, and like there's more automation for it nowadays. You know, for
Mhm.
instance, like unwrapping and texturing and scope, like all of this is like a hard thing to do. All of these things, and to do any of them was like enough for people to hire you as a 3D artist, right?
Right.
But now like auto mapping and auto topologizing, like topology is starting to become like just a button now, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like reliable button. I'm not saying like right now, like I don't have a reliable topology or reliable UVs, but this it's okay. It's just a demonstration.
Right.
But that's gonna be a button. And like I said, like a lot of 3D like jobs are based off the fact that you are that technical too. You know that much technical stuff. But that stuff's gonna start going away. And same thing with animation too. Like a lot of animators will gonna have to learn how to just act and just film it and just put it back onto the 3D model. Now, I'm not saying that there's not going to be jobs for the traditional 3D art workflow.
Hmm.
It's like but the way that you should look at it is like look at how pixel art is looked at today. Like back in the day, pixel art was a standard because it's like the way to save space and memory. But now it's just style, right? So imagine like in the future, it's like having hand painted textures is just like, well, that's not a good example, but like having like 3D models that look like something that you would see in like the Call of Duty game
Yeah.
would be like a style because our technology was so good. There's no real reason, you know, to make it look that way. You know, we could make it
Right.
look better.
Unless you're like trying to, it's a throwback look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I always warn people, like, you know, just like, and I'm saying, like, even with 2D, like, there's like the same fear should be there, right? Like, there's going to be something that will come. And now, like, for instance, like photo bashing and 3D modeling, right? Like, people are like, feel like they need to learn 3D because, you know, if they don't, they're going to be left behind. And the reality is, like, you already been left behind. Like, the 3D is already a thing. People do 3D as concepts, you
Hmm.
know? But the question is not so much about, like, should you learn 3D? Because it's like, you know, something that I need to have. It's like 3D is like making it like 3D is coming into your forefront to the point where you don't have to learn 3D. It's like it's just easy. You can just do it.
Right.
You know? So then now the question is, what can you do with it once that tools and inventions exist? Because I always say, like, you know, eventually there's gonna be technology where you just put on a helmet, right? And you put on the helmet, and then you just think about what you want to make, and it'll just make it, right?
Man, that
Like
make
that
things a little
technology
bit
is gonna
easier, wouldn't
exist.
it?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
technology is gonna exist one day, and when it does, I can't wait because when it does exist, then it's gonna prove my point that if you don't know shit, you can't make shit. You know?
Right. And that's the big thing is that like you really have to work on being creative, right? That's
Yeah,
where the true value lies, right? That's the thing that's not recreatable is coming up with original ideas and being creative and using
yeah,
those to express emotions and what you want to,
sure.
you know?
Yeah. Like Vitali. Vitali used to be your traditional 3D modeler, but now he's not anymore.
Hmm.
Right? Like that's definitely he's a designer, and that's what makes him valuable. And let me be clear too, even creativity can be automated. Seriously.
Well,
So like,
didn't Google do some like weird like interpreting dreams images
oh
or
yeah,
something like
oh, yeah.
that?
There's already people on because it's all like, unfortunately, guys, our brains are physical. They're physical things that do physical stuff. You know, it's nice to believe that they're magical and ethereal, and there's a mystery.
Hmm.
Just because a thing's a mystery doesn't mean it's magical. It just means we don't understand it. But once we start understanding things, then we can start doing
Whoa,
things
whoa,
with
whoa, whoa, whoa! Magic doesn't exist.
it. No, no. But I feel that at that point in our humanity, if we get to the point where we can start controlling and predicting creativity,
Yeah.
we're not going to be worrying about making movies in 3D art anymore. We're going to be at a whole different level of
Yeah, it'll
humanity.
be on to the next creative thing.
No, we'll just be like a whole different thing. Like we'd probably be like one being, you know, like a hive mind.
Collective mind.
Yeah, seriously. Like if we
Uh.
get to that point where we understand consciousness and the way that the brain works in terms of how it manages all the neurons, and you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
if we get to that point, like that, I'm talking like this is like potentially in the next century where we will be at that level where we, like, you know, people are afraid of Skynet taking, like, killing humans and stuff like that. No,
Mhm.
no, no. We will become Skynet. Like, humans will be Skynet.
But
You know
it'd be
what I'm
like the Borg.
saying? Yeah, we will become the robots. It's like our
The
bodies are
robot
super
pencil. Is
fragile.
that your master plan? Is the robot pencil?
Yeah, can't wait.
Ah, I
Yeah,
see.
wait.
I see.
Uh, but you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But creativity is probably the last job that we will, like, it'll be the last real job that we will be able to replace with some sort of technology. I think so. It's going to be one of the last things that we will say, okay, we figured that out. Now that we did that, we make a machine that can be super creative. And we just press a button and then it says, oh yeah, by the way, you know, I took all the information that you've given me and I've created a spaceship that can now travel at the speed of light. You know?
Yeah.
So
And
that's what,
oh, by the way, it looks cool too, and it also comes in cobalt blue.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I mean, it's just, if you really think about it, it's just like, hell, there was times in our humanity where we believed things were just impossible,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just did it. You know, as soon as we start understanding things at a higher level, like we're able to accomplish great feats. And creativity is one of those things too. And a lot of the people, basically the people that are on the forefront of creativity, see the creativity that I see it, which means that I have a good suspicion it's going to happen right away. Which is, it's just all math. It's all algorithms.
Right.
Right. So think about it. And this is how I teach my students, and this is how my students improve, is by giving them practical advice. Right. I'm like, okay, if you want to be creative, think of it like this. If you only know triangles and squares, then you can only combine triangles and squares together, right? And there's only so many triangles and square combinations that you can make, right? Before you start running out of ideas. And this is where people feel stuck. It's because you're trying to make a circle out of triangles and squares, right? And then once you start learning what circles are about, then you have triangles, squares, and circles. All right, and then that exponentially grows the amount of things you can create, you know.
Right.
And then when you add a pentagon or an octagon or hexagon, and you add all these other shapes or those other variations, right? Then you exponentially grow the types of things that you can creatively make, right? Because that's how our brains work. Our brains work by combining several ideas together to make something new.
Right. Yeah.
And if you look at anything creative, anything that's quote unquote unique, because, you know, there's a saying that there's nothing original. That's not entirely true. It's just what that concept means is that there's nothing that comes from nothing, right? Like, we didn't go from cavemen making fires to an ironclad stove, you know, like a electric stove top.
Right.
You know, we went through many variations until someone says, hey, we got electricity, we got stoves, we put it together.
Right.
Right? It wasn't like the cavemen were like, we got fire, now let's make a stove.
Now let's
right?
make plasma.
Yeah. It earned like, hey, look,
Right.
this stick is sharp. I can stab things with it. Hey, what if we sharpen these rocks? Yeah, that's a good idea. But how we tie it together? Well, one day someone invented the rope. They're like, hey, our hair could be used as a rope. Oh, that's a good idea.
Right.
And then they tied it together, and oh, nice. And then that was a thing for a while. I said, well, what if we have a longer stick that we can bend and contract and shoot these little stick thingies further? And then they're, oh, that's a cool idea. And then they did that.
Right.
And then one person's like, you know, and eventually over time you have the bullet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, once things get going, you know, then creativity starts to come into play, because the idea of creativity makes more sense as an algorithm than anything else. It's just like, what are the pieces of information that you're given, and how do you deal with that information? So if you look at like art creatively, like think about like the art that was done a millennia ago. Like they weren't creative, right? They just like they were limited, right? The kinds of stuff that they did, I always call, like, some of my artists or my students do this stuff that I call the Greek mythology design, where they'll like literally put the head of a lion on the body of a man, and so really
yeah,
just
right.
don't.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, we have comparative anatomy books, we have you know, art that is available for us that can change the way we see and imagine art now, right?
Right.
We have the Matrix, so we can now think about higher concepts of sci-fi because the Matrix exists and Star Wars exists.
Right. Yeah.
If those things didn't exist, then it was harder. Even Star Wars, you might think, well, Star Wars is completely original. Obviously, it is, but in the scope of what the saying, there's nothing truly original. Yeah, he was super inspired by like older films, and those films were documented. And you could see the clear influences of like the dogfights from one film to the samurai showdowns in another film, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like a lot of it was taken from Japanese culture, right? And then
Yeah.
he lived in San Francisco area at the time, right? And like
Oh
all you
yeah.
had to do was like look around and be like, oh, that guy with the long hair,
They got
he
a
looks like
spaceship.
Chewie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
there's a
yeah,
lot of that's a great point. There's a lot of things in San Francisco. There's these lamps that if I forget where they're at, but there's these lamps that are turned sideways, but
Mhm.
they look like Slave One. And there were stories where he went in there and said, like, these lamps look cool, make it a spaceship.
Yeah.
And that's how Slave One was invented.
Right.
The construction shipyards is where he got the AT-ATs from.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly. Or the shipyards in the Bay Area, right? Right, those big cranes that are sitting
absolutely.
out there like taking all the. You're like, those are AT-ATs right there.
So if people want to
Yeah.
sharpen that blade, because that's a blade that's worth sharpening, right?
Right.
In terms of creative ability, because like the tools are going to change. The hammer is going to be different every time. There's going to be better hammers, but it's how you use that hammer, right?
Right. Right.
That's what our machines today can't do. They can't be creative because that is a very complicated thing. Machines are really good at doing one or two tasks really efficiently, but they can't connect things in a contextual idea. And it makes sense at a biological and evolutionary stance why we have this for survival, to be able to remember our surroundings, remember the things that we were using before, and find creative ways to keep ourselves alive longer.
Right.
Right? It's a
Yeah.
very, very, very powerful evolutionary tool that we have over all the other animals on this planet. Right? And we will eventually be able to replicate that. And when we do, we will be robots. We will all be one hive mind. And I wouldn't worry about it at that point, about your job, because we will all just be one. And we'll
Yeah.
be flying around the universe, living the life. All right, anyways, but that's...
And now we're going to conclude our latest chapter on NPR.
I know, right?
Oh, it's
When I
awesome,
get
man.
going, I get
No,
going.
it's cool, like being able to kind of like step outside and just and step away and think of the bigger picture, other than like, oh, I need to learn how to sculpt a knee. Like, oh, I need to,
Yes.
like there's a lot of bigger picture stuff going on, and you got to make sure that you kind of account for all things. It's not just what you know of art that makes you a good artist. It's everything else. It's your family. It's what you've learned. It's taking all those pieces of your life,
Yes.
putting them together in your own personal way, and that's what makes you as an artist. Same
Yes.
exact idea.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes.
Yes and yes. Awesome, man.
All right, cool.
All right, dude. All right, well, that was fun.
That's it.
That's good. That
I'm
was.
out of here. That's view the 3D art. You can animate it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's awesome. Cool, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your weekend to come hang out with us, man. It was as always a good talk, and learned a lot of cool stuff, and eyes are open to a lot of other cool stuff, and yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
We got to witness the Twitch event. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That was
Yeah, it was weird.
nuts, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
So yeah, dude. All right, well, so if definitely guys go check out robotpencil.net. He's got an amazing mentorship program that he's running for character art, for just art in general. He also let's say what Kalen does environment stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's still doing some stuff. So check out robotpencil.net. He's also got some really awesome Gumroads and shorter tutorials there if you don't have the resources to do the full-on one. But if you do, I highly recommend it. But yeah, and take a peek at the website, and keep an eye out for lots of other stuff that that Mr. Jones is going to be doing. He's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on in that brain case of his, so it'll be good. Things are good.
Cool.
All right, man. Well, yeah, dude. Thanks for thanks for hanging out. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for everybody showing up. I appreciate
Yeah.
everybody. And then yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
All right,
So
guys.
what do we do now? Do we just
That's well. I think we'll just hang around for a couple minutes and make it really awkward, and then like
all right, cool.
we'll just do that.
I'm down for that. I like being awkward.
Let's go. All right. Well, it's coffee time. We'll do coffee time real quick. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks to my mods for helping out, Marcelo and Steph and Shay. Much appreciated. Thanks to the subs. Love you guys. Thanks for all the awesome conversations and the good questions. And we will see you soon. By the way, I'm not announcing it yet, but I do have my next special guest confirmed. I'll go ahead and announce that on Monday on Facebook. So if you're around, keep an eye out on Monday. Monday. All right, guys.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, AJ. We'll see you around, man.
All right, laters.
All right, later, guys.